Hey, hello everybody. It's JC with Wrestling Travel, obviously. Just got a quick announcement before we get to this episode of the lockdown sessions. Now, we're going to be speaking to the beautiful Val Malone. She's gracious enough to give us some time. You're going to see a part in here where I completely stuff up a question. You're going to watch a guy go down in flames. She was very nice and let me recover. What I am trying to say is she is actually very young, but she has been in the business for a long time. I'm trying to state that she elevates the people that she manages. Watch me fumble over every word, old, young, been in the business for a while. Like I said, she was super nice. Let me get away with it. So you can see that I probably lost a lot of my journalistic integrity right there. Um, and I want to go on here and say, hey, man, I recovered very nicely, but I did not. That is the low light for today's episode of the Lockdown Sessions. I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there because, man, do I sound like an idiot on there. And I'm okay sounding like an idiot, but I want to at least go, hey, here's what I was trying to say. Here's how it came up. She forgave me. Everything else went really good without a hitch. Please take some time to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and when we do, we've got a ton of giveaways. And also, please, not just the beautiful Val Malone, but all of the guests on Lockdown Sessions, please visit their social media, buy a t-shirt, just support them, buy a ticket when pro wrestling comes back. That is the entire point of how I wanted to do these Lockdown Sessions, is just give pro wrestling a chance. Yes, I know things are crazy right now with everything going on in the world, and particularly the pro wrestling world. But please, we need to protect the business as people in the business, the fans, everybody. We need to police it. And I'm trying to pick out great people that are doing great things that maybe you never heard of. So please give us a like, give us a subscribe, but more importantly, please support the ones that are gracious enough to give us our interview time. And now, check out the Lockdown Sessions with Val Malone, and it won't be very hard to find the question that I completely mess up. Enjoy. Welcome back to Wrestling Travel Presents the Lockdown Sessions, and today we have a very special guest. We have Miss Val Malone. Val, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Outstanding. It's great to have you on here. I just saw you, full disclosure, 2 days ago at Wisconsin Pro Wrestling event in Green Bay. It was nice to see you, and man, it was a ton of the boys, and it was a good crowd. I thought. I'd never been there in Green Bay, but what were your thoughts on the show?
Oh, I thought the show was great. You know, it wasn't my first show back since the whole Rona stuff started happening. So it was nice to be able to see a bunch of people that I haven't literally seen in forever. And that crowd, like, I just felt like they ate everything up. I felt like they really, really enjoyed themselves. Like, I feel like people were itching for wrestling, and they really, really missed wrestling. So you could just feel like the atmosphere in there, that everybody was happy. There was like no worries. There was like no negativity, even despite stuff that's gone down in the wrestling world recently. I just feel like it was a great show, you know, and that crowd was just awesome, especially, you know, like the Ben McCoy and Zach Hendricks match where they were on their feet at the end of it and gave them a standing ovation and chanted both these guys. Like, those are the moments that I love in wrestling, where you can just feel it. I watched the whole thing and just feeling that energy from the crowd was awesome.
Yeah, very, very solid point. So for everybody that is watching around the world, a lot of places, I know you guys don't have wrestling back, but Wisconsin Pro Wrestling treated it very seriously when they're taking temperatures as people entered. If you didn't have a mask, they had the mask there for you. They had it set up so you could kind of social distance, but the crowd kind of came together, and it was, man, like you said, the energy. I had predicted correctly, I'm glad to say that a few months ago that, man, when wrestling does come back, the crowd is going to be back in there, because that's the one thing that you don't realize is missing until you watch it on TV and go, man, this is a tough watch with no people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and me being a manager, you know, I know the guys feed off the crowd, but me being a manager, I definitely feed off the crowd. Like, I need that crowd there, and even if you do shows where that maybe didn't draw so good, you know, I feel like it's a little bit more of a challenge to really like get those people to genuinely dislike me a lot. So I know for me, if I had to do no crowd, it'd be really not just weird, but it would be really, really hard, because you definitely, especially being a manager, you really feed off of that.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't get into this later, but you don't have that cheap heat where you're just like, you know, I hate everybody in Green Bay and the Packers suck. You have like a legitimate, like, you're working and they dislike you, because usually that was the tough thing when I used to do this full time, was being, and trust me, I wasn't as good as you. I just had the cheap heat, like, you guys suck, and they'd boo you a little bit. But yeah, the crowd definitely gets into you and the Val Malone character, which is awesome. So let's back it up. How long have you been in the business, Val?
Well, I actually managed my very first match in August of 2006. But my older brother, he's a local wrestler as well, is Dysfunction. He also runs ICW in Milwaukee, but he's 4 years older than me. So when he started training at 16, I was that annoying little sister that always like tagged along and would come to the shows and be the raffle ticket girl or help set up chairs and tear down and stuff. So I knew, me and him grew up both loving wrestling. So I knew once he got into indie wrestling, I really wanted to be a part of it as well. So there's some guys that I've known since I don't want to say my age, but I will, but I'm 33. So there's some guys I've known for 20 years, you know, and are still around and still, you know, doing shows and such. So I like to say that I've known people for a very long time and they're like my brothers, but my first actual managing match was in August 2006. So it's been a while. I took a few years off to do the mom thing and the softball, like little league mom thing for my son. But then, you know, came back right to it and it was like it never left.
Now, so did Big Brother break you into the business then?
Yeah, he definitely helped with it. I credit him to a lot of my knowledge and helping, but you know, everyone would think it was very easy. However, my brother made me prove myself, and he didn't want to just throw me in because, oh, that's my little sister. I almost felt like I had to prove that I knew what I was doing and prove that, you know, I was in it for the right reasons and such. So he didn't actually book me right away. I had to actually prove myself. My husband at the time was Silas Young, and he actually kind of helped out a little bit and actually used that as my wedding gift, was I got to manage him on the show. So I credit my brother a lot to that, and like Derek St. Holmes as well. He helped me out a lot when I was first starting out.
Derek St. Holmes is a name that might not be known,
Right.
you know, worldwide, but man, did I love watching Derek St. Holmes down in Milwaukee area back in the 90s there.
And you know, it's funny because a lot of people, Derek was the first person that they worked with when they first started out. So my story is a lot like a lot of other people from this area stories, where Derek was the first person, whether it was just having them as his little manservant or just, you know, he's always willing to give advice and such. So Derek is definitely a big part, I feel like, of like the local wrestling around here, because he just helped so many people right off the bat.
Now, does he still get on shows, go to shows recently, or?
He does. I actually managed him not too long ago for ICW in Milwaukee. Again, my brother runs that, and Derek lives in Milwaukee. So I've actually managed him quite often within the last year or so. So he's still definitely around.
Good to hear. I moved back to Wisconsin from the East Coast, and I'm way up here north. I'm practically to the UP, so I don't get down there as much. And
right.
And being away for 10 plus years, I didn't really. I come back, and now all these names start coming back to me that I used to watch. Going, oh, right. Are they still hanging out? Are they still doing anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So, obviously, yeah, Big Brother breaking you in, that's a lot of pressure on him too, because there's no way he's going to be like.
It was so much
Hard.
pressure,
Yeah, I would
a
imagine.
ridiculous amount of pressure. And, you know, you never want to let down, especially because me and him are so close. We've been close since we were kids. We're still close as grown adults. So, you know, knowing that I was going to let him down was just always in the back of my mind. And I never wanted to let him down. But he was also the kind of guy where if you did do something wrong or something he didn't like, or he had some advice to you, me being his sister, not that he was harsher on me, but he was just more comfortable to be like, hey, you effed this up, or you should have did this. And then, you know, you never, it's like when a parent says, I'm not mad at you, I'm disappointed in you, kind of one of those types of things. So I'm very appreciative of that, though, looking back, because a lot of people can't, when they're starting out, they seem to get kind of a big head right away because nobody's being honest and they're kind of being soft with them a little bit. And when they start getting that constructive criticism when they're doing matches in front of crowds, they either one, take complete offense to it, or two, think that the person's wrong and that they don't know what they're talking about and that they're great and they don't need to work on anything. So I'm actually super happy that I was a part of that old schoolish mentality around Milwaukee where, you know, you had to earn things and like people weren't going to tell you all these things you did good. It was, here's what you need to work on and here's what you need to do better. You know, the main focus was what you need to change or what you can work on going forward. So me having that fear a little bit instilled in me, I am super appreciative of that to this day when I see how, you know, some of the younger kids are coming up and how just that environment is for them. So like I said, it seemed, you know, I've been yelled at in the locker room by him before in front of people, but guess what? That made me realize, okay, shit, I never want this to happen to me again. So let's change something up here.
Right. I'm kind of glad you brought it up because I do try to stay super positive on here, but I'm glad what you said. I appeared on a podcast last weekend for these guys out of New York, True Heel Heat.
Hmm.
Great people. We started talking about the kind of the movement that's going on. And while I don't want to touch on it, you
Yeah.
did kind of echo some of my feelings of there is a lot of horrible accusations that came out,
Hmm.
but there are a lot of people kind of jumping on the back of that with some of these bullying stuff where I'm not going to take away from anybody's story, but
Right.
you can't totally take away. You got to be a little bit, you know, when I
Hmm.
was growing up playing football or being coached when I was younger, when the coaches were kind of yelling at you or taking that on you, is because they cared.
Right.
They weren't abusive, but certainly if
No.
I was sensitive, so it's like,
Yeah.
where's that balance, you know?
I mean, and I think it's a combination of having like the tough love because if somebody's willing to put in that effort to tell you, hey, like you need to do this right, or if you keep doing the same thing wrong over and over, like they're gonna keep, hey, we talked about this already, and maybe it could come off as bullying, but it's really not. It's to me, it's tough love, and in wrestling, I feel like you need to have thick skin, whether you're a man or a woman. Like you need to have thick skin, otherwise you're gonna take everything personally or be super offended by it. And I could, looking back, have been super offended by a lot of stuff that was said to me. But you develop that thick skin and you realize the bigger picture of it is we're all on this show. We're all trying to entertain these people. If I do something crappy and like it kind of has a domino effect, that just makes us all look bad. But if we're all doing good, it makes the whole show, the company, the promoter, it makes everybody look good.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know how many times when I was starting out, I'm like, man, if I messed up something in the ring or somebody else did, it wasn't. If I messed it up, I didn't look bad. We all look bad, you know?
Right, right. It's not a personal thing. It's just how it reflects on everybody as a whole.
So when you're growing up, did you kind of want to get in the business because of Big Brother, or did you? I usually ask people like, who did they look to on like television? Like, who were some of their heroes that they watched?
Well, like I said, my brother was older than me, so my dad was always a wrestling fan when he was younger, and his mom would take him to like the local shows and such when he was a kid. He loved the Crusher. The Crusher was his guy. He still is his guy. So our family is definitely like a wrestling-ish family. So naturally, when my brother was born, he got into it. But when he was like 2 years old, there's pictures of him holding like a Hulk Hogan LJN like figure and stuff. So he was really into it after I was born. Obviously, it's on TV, it's in my house. Like there was no chance for me to not like wrestling or not want to be like a part of it. So, you know, growing up, obviously, you know, there was the Miss Elizabeths and the Sherry Martells and such that I was watching on TV because we were definitely a WWF family. So those were like the main two people that when I saw them, I thought, oh, great, I don't have to wrestle because I never really wanted to wrestle per se. I always wanted to be a part of it, but I wanted to do that manager aspect. For some reason, that was always the more appealing thing to me. And then my brother introduced me to ECW once they got a little bit older, and seeing, Francine, I was like, oh my gosh, like she's taking bumps and she's going to tables and she's doing all this crazy stuff while she's still like a attractive girl and doing her thing, and like your facials and just how she cut promos and everything. So my shift went from like the whole, oh, first lady of wrestling thing to, man, I want to be like Francine. Like Francine's my girl now. That's who I want to be like. So I was kind of happy as I got into wrestling. I was actually able to do like stuff with Raven and like have some weird little random ECW moments and get gored through a table by Rhino and stuff. So like the little Val in me was like super pumped because, like I said, I obviously loved Elizabeth and Sherry and all that, but like seeing those girls in ECW was just different because nobody was doing stuff like that.
Right. They were sort of it's hard to say. I always talk with when I have girls on here, I had the Blossom twins about a couple months ago, and I said, when they were doing stuff in TNA, it was, WWE was doing like the bra and panties,
Right.
Diva stuff, but now here was, I've grown up in wrestling and a little bit more, but as a fan, we grew up as, okay, women they're going to wear some skimpy outfits and do much, but like your Sherry Martells, and then some of these, when they're mixing it up in Impact in like the early 2000s, mid-decade there, I'm like, wow, these girls are working. And I'm like, I was telling Lucy and Kelly, I'm like, dare I say it, better matches than the guys on the show at the time. Like it drew me in, and that's why I really like this whole, yes, females being sexy, beautiful, that's great, but what I love is this toughness and tenacity and these great matches that are getting put on, since the mid 2000s.
Absolutely. I think a lot has changed where that whole view of female managers was just being the eye candy, or we're going to throw this girl with this guy because they're dating, or something along those lines. And I never wanted to be that girl because I always genuinely love wrestling. I never looked at this as, oh, this is going to be my stepping stone to get to Playboy or be a model or something along those lines. I knew like wrestling was where it was at, and I knew that there was more to being a manager than just wearing like a skimpy outfit or whatever. I knew that there was some psychology behind stuff, and like you had to do things at certain times and then not do things at certain times, and there are certain key points during the match where maybe you need to be a little bit more elevated because it helps whatever they're trying to do in the ring get put across. But then there's also times when, most of the time, you don't have the spotlight on you. And I tell a lot of new managers that come in, they ask me for advice, and I right off the bat tell them, if you want the spotlight on you the entire time, don't be a manager, because that's not going to happen. Be a wrestler and train to be a wrestler if you want that spotlight on you the whole time during the match. But when you're a manager, that shouldn't happen unless, you need it to happen, and like it's time for you to shine and have that spotlight on you. And I think that's what I really liked about being a manager this whole time, was like the psychology behind this stuff and what I can do on the outside to help make the match better on like the inside, whereas maybe people don't even realize I'm doing it, but it adds to it, It's like, I don't know, it's a really weird thing when it's done right, and I feel like managing's become a really lost art for one reason or another. I don't know if I got oversaturated with we're just going to stick this chick in skimpy clothes with this dude just because, I like that there's logic behind things and there's a reason behind things. So I'm hoping that the managing art comes back fully and it gets looked at a little bit more, for lack of a better word, respectfully when it comes to women, instead of it just being, we're going to stick this hot girl with this guy just because.
Right. And like I was trying to say, like, eye candy is one thing, but it's nice. You actually, when I'm looking back and trying to remember the list of people that you've managed, and seeing you come out with Coda Jacobs and JP this past weekend, I'm like, okay, that you've elevated. You're elevating him by just having the name of Val Malone. Because I got to tell you, I've been a corner man, not so much a manager, but I don't know how you do it, because it's easier when I'm in the ring and I know what we're going to do. And then if something messes up and we're able to kind of just continue. But now when I'm on the outside and go, okay, I gotta wait for this spot. And I'm more nervous than that, because I'm like, well, am I in the right spot? Wait, what are they doing? I mean, that's a lot of.
Yeah. And, and I've said that before, like in just discussions with people, I'm like, hey, it's cool for you guys, because if something gets fumbled or messed up, you guys can at least somewhat communicate. I'm on the outside. I don't really know Like we can't necessarily communicate, but you just get to start, for me, I listen to like when they're calling matches, I listen to like what they're saying. I want to know exactly what's supposed to happen before I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do and what's going to happen after I do what I'm supposed to do. I get literal where I'm like, okay, I'm standing here and this is the corner. Do you want me here? Do you want me here? Like I ask a lot of questions and I'm sure I annoy the crap out of people, but I like knowing that stuff because I can't just be like, hey, by the way, like, I need to figure that stuff out ahead of time. And like, I want to know if I have to grab your leg, am I doing it for 3 seconds or are you going to kick me off? Like, I need to know those specifics so that I know how to react, how to like set myself up for it. That's how I've kind of managed to do the whole, I can't talk to you during the match so I ask a lot of questions ahead of time. And I even new people I work with, I'm like, just so you know, I do ask a lot of specific questions. So don't just tell me to pull your leg. Like, I need to know exactly why I'm pulling, where I'm pulling it, what I should do. Who exactly, like in tag matches, sometimes they'll just say, oh, yeah, you just pull the dude. Well, which dude? There's 2 of you. I get that maybe things can get fumbled. However, or when they say, I'm going to body slam or do this, like just basic things that could happen numerous times throughout the match. Okay, so is that the second time or is that the third time? Or you're going up to the top and I got to come up there. Is that the only time you're going to the top or are you doing it numerous times? Like, I feel like I need to ask specific questions and like pay attention as they're calling that match so that I know exactly what's going on and like what's coming up and everything in case something does get fumbled. I can be like, oh, well, I know this was supposed to happen, but maybe somebody got lost and forgot it, so they skipped it. That's kind of how I have learned to deal with the whole not being able to communicate with the guys in the ring.
How do you, and pardon the term here, manage, but how do you manage to keep that all in play? Plus, you're closer to the crowd than anybody in the ring. You still have crowd interactions and stuff. I mean, does that when you have that interaction, they're booing you.
Yeah, well, for me, like when it comes to, I know I've seen a lot of people where they'll like, fans will be talking crap and they'll like turn around and like specifically go after one person. And now you're sitting there thinking about, okay, I got to come up with something witty or something funny or something to get me heat. Whereas I will just kind of address the crowd as a whole. I may, if I do anything specific to a person, like I've had people like do the dollars thing at me, like a stripper, like they're trying to throw dollars at me and I'll just walk up and rip their dollar apart. That means like I don't have to say anything and I don't have to mess up what's in my brain, but the action alone of me ripping up your dollar and like that like got me heat from doing stuff like that. So just kind of trial and error, doing things. I realized, okay, when I'm sitting there trying to get specific on somebody, I'm not that witty. I'm not that quick to like insult somebody or to think of something off the top of my brain that's going to get me heat. So I like to kind of do like blanket statements and like stuff like that where I'm addressing everybody on that side so that my brain stays like focused on what I have to do and what's coming up in the match.
I mean, I've been on shows where they've asked me to come in and I figured I'm going to come in and just kind of hang out and watch and, hey, we need a ring announcer. Or I've done ring announcing and played the music. And I'm like, I am more nerve-wracked by doing that stuff than anything else I've ever done.
Absolutely.
Just because, why are you playing my song so long? I'm like, oh God, I don't even know what your song is, so, so you got in the ring a little bit, mixed it up, this weekend as you do as a manager, but, I imagine you have in your career, but you've gotten in there and wrestled singles matches, tag matches?
I've done a bunch of mixed tag matches. I've had maybe 2 or 3 singles matches, but that was only because Stacy Shadows, locally, she had messed up her ankle. So she had some committed bookings and then asked me, hey, is there any way possible that you could maybe do this for me? And like, she came out there as my manager. I've never managed Stacy Shadows, but Stacy Shadows has managed me, which is very bizarre to me. So I've been dying to manage her or like Sierra locally. So I've had, like I said, about probably 2 or 3 singles matches, and they're just very short, basic. I just listened because it was with Melanie Cruz, so I just listened to Mel the whole time. And then a bunch of mixed tag matches. So the only thing I haven't done is being like in a mixed tag match where I'm being billed as a manager, but being thrown in the tag match, like a Bobby Heenan type like thing. So I've said now, I broke my arm actually in a match, a mixed tag match, like a few years back, and had to get a number of surgeries on it. So I always said, if I ever do another mixed tag match, I am wrestling as a manager. I do not want to be billed as a wrestler because I am not a wrestler. I don't want to put that in people's brains because I know I'm going to suck because that's just not not my forte. I can get through it with the right people and like the basic stuff and me like being a heel and being able to get beat up or whatever. But there's just, I'll never bill myself as a wrestler ever. I would just rather my next one, if it happens, it's I'm being thrown in, like I said, like Bobby Heenan style, and like a mixed tag match where I'm wrestling as a manager that just happened to get thrown in this match because I keep distracting or I keep messing stuff up or whatever. But it's definitely not my thing. I'll do it if I have to with the right people, but it's definitely not something I like actively pursue when it comes to bookings.
So I'd be pretty nerve-wracking your first time going in doing a mixed tag then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I believe is one of the first ones I did with Silas Young at the time. Because again, we were married at the time. So having like him in it and him knowing what I was capable of doing, what I wasn't capable of doing, and him with the status he had, people listened to him. So like when he called the match, he knew my strengths and weaknesses. People obviously listened to him. But then when I did other mixed tags that he like wasn't involved in, people didn't. Not that they didn't care about my strengths and weaknesses, but I think it just wasn't forefront of their mind that, hey, I'm still a manager here. Like, just because you tell me to do a drop toe hold, like, guess what? I've never done that before. So that's going to get in my brain. I'm going to overthink. It's definitely going to get messed up. So that was one thing I was like appreciative about doing mixed tags with him was he was well aware of what I could do and what I couldn't do.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I jumped back in the ring after having a number of years off.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to come in, and they're like, well, local crowd, hometown. Well, I thought it was going to be like a 2-minute squash, but they called like a 6-minute match. And I'm going, well, I don't know if my brain, luckily I could kind of keep up with it, but it's a lot of entertaining the crowd and remembering everything that's going on and making sure a lot of people don't understand what goes into it. It's very easy to sit at home and criticize. And believe me, I've done it. We've all done it. But they should have done this, should have done that. But man, it is when you're in the crowd and you always try to wipe the slate clean, but you could be having a bad day, a bad week, something crazy, and now, okay, I got to try to throw all that aside and get back in. And your mind, the brain is a funny thing,
Absolutely, and
now,
like out there, it's sensory overload in itself. So when, like you said, if you have a bad day or you have something going on, and then the sensory overload of all this stuff, plus your brain is on overdrive, it could just be a little much sometimes.
and I usually get like if I had a bad day and then all of a sudden I'm a heel and the crowd says something, and I'm like, all right, I'm taking that a little bit more personally than I should, because I'm having a bad day, and it's like, okay, focus again,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
yeah. Now you got to help me out here because I'm a homer.
Mm-hmm.
I moved back to Wisconsin, the Midwest, and you've been here.
Yep.
Now, am I dreaming, or we just got a whole lot of talent hanging out in this state? I mean, it's fantastic.
It's stacked. It's absolutely stacked. Like I actually just tweeted this morning because I was thinking about the weekend, and I did a show Friday for Frozen Tundra Wrestling, and then the WPW show Saturday, and of course slept all day yesterday to recoup from everything. But this morning I tweeted, I love Wisconsin wrestling, from the workers to the shows to the fans. Like, it just being gone all that time just made me super appreciate every single aspect of Wisconsin wrestling. I mean, you have your drama and your politics, but I feel like that comes with the territory. That comes no matter where you are, that's going to happen. But overall, like, Wisconsin is very stacked for solid wrestling, and all the fans, a lot of the fans are becoming like a little family as well, because a lot of them will make the drive to Green Bay, or they'll make the drive down to Milwaukee for ICW, or they'll make the drive to Cedarburg for Dave Hero's GLCW. They're definitely they travel around kind of with us. So you get to know all these fans, and like I said, they kind of become like the fan family. So I think even not just the stacked workers that we have, and like a lot of now we have a bunch of companies running as well, but we have a lot of those really good loyal fans that really super support Wisconsin indie wrestling to the fullest by buying merch and coming to every show. Like, a lot of fans did the Friday and Saturday shows, even though they were on kind of separate ends, they still made those drives and went to all the stuff that's going on and plan on going to the next stuff. And I just think like Wisconsin's super grateful, should be super grateful right now with where we're at with wrestling.
Right, that's one of the things I try to do in my lockdown sessions, even though we go kind of worldwide. I've had a few bigger names. I was lucky enough to talk to Nikita Koloff last week, but I love featuring our local guys because I've always had people come up and go, I've never been to a show. I want to go to WWE. And I always say the same thing when I talk about this. If you want to go to WWE, AEW, sit up in the stands in the bleachers and enjoy it. Great. I love it. We all aspire to be there. But you're missing out because people will say to me, oh, yeah, there's amateur pro wrestling going on at the high school. And I'm like, yeah, that's still pro wrestling. And guess what? You should go because it's a lot of fun. What are fans just in general? I always try to encourage people to go to independent shows because you're so much closer to the action. Can you describe an independent show for a fan that's maybe on the fence?
Absolutely. And I think that's what you just said is kind of one of my main points because obviously people ask me, my family's involved with it, so it's kind of hard not to get asked questions about wrestling and what we do and how the shows are like and everything. But it's just, to me, when you go to an indie show, not that it's more intimate, but it kind of is compared to going to a WWE show or an AEW show. I feel like the fans' voices and their opinions and such are heard a lot more when they're going to an indie show, and they feel more comfortable doing it because everybody else is doing it and just, having drinks and like getting it all out. Whereas you go to, the WWE shows or the AEW shows, and there's a little bit more restrictions on certain things, or if you're, this guy's over here yelling because he's really getting into it and giving the heel wrestler the heat he's looking for, it may not even be heard or noticed. But then if you're at an indie show and you got someone doing that, this person may get everybody else going as well. And then you have, this smaller crowd, but the energy I feel like is even like more so sometimes because they're like super into it because they know they're being heard and they're being acknowledged. Whereas like obviously WWE and AEW, you can't necessarily acknowledge all the people. However, they feel like it a little bit more with the independent stuff. It's definitely a more like close-knit, like intimate, like atmosphere, for lack of a better word. And that's usually how I describe it. I mean, a lot of people ask me about ICW because it's a more deathmatch hardcore type of a company. However, now we're starting to run in West Dallas, which those are going to be more, I don't want to say family friendly because we're still allowed to swear and like do stuff like that, but it's going to be less hardcore stuff. So I kind of like that my brother's giving like the best of both worlds when it comes to that. So then if you only like deathmatch stuff, you can have that. If you don't like deathmatch stuff and don't want to see that, you can have that too, but still come to ICW and enjoy yourself. So I like to really put that stuff over a lot. And just like I said, like the closeness of it all compared to going to somewhere that was at like the Bradley Center, or sorry, the Pfizer Forum now. It's not the Bradley
Pfizer Forum, yes. Hopefully home of our future NBA champions, if we can get there.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
And the other thing I want to get in before I would tear off on the Milwaukee Bucks here is, especially coming out of this pandemic, if I'm a fan, I'm able to go out, finally see some live entertainment, but we'll take, for example, Baba Louie's, the bar. I mean, you're supporting the wrestling, you're supporting a local business. A lot of wrestling, independent, especially on the independent level, does a lot for charities.
Yeah.
I've said this. We did the WrestleMania crawl this year on Twitch. Pro wrestling in the mainstream, I've always said since day one that maybe regular society kind of does this to us.
Yeah.
Maybe looks down a little bit like that's fake and that's why would you want to, those guys are carnies and this and that. But when it comes down to professional wrestlers, professional wrestling, and the pro wrestling fans, I would say pound for pound, nobody is more charitable and gives back. Yeah, I see it here in Wisconsin all the time. There's always a great cause, and people like yourselves are performing for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what a lot of people forget, like you said, a lot of people look down on it. And to me, I feel like if I tell somebody who doesn't know or they don't get it, it's real hit or miss. It's either going to be like, wow, that's awesome, you do that, or it's going to be like, why do you do that? That's, and then you get the criticism and such. But I think what people don't realize, the normies, as I like to call them, they don't get it because they think, why would you do this and barely get paid? Why would you drive all these miles and barely get anything out of it just to do a 6-minute match? Or for me, just to stand out there and lose your voice by the time the weekend's gone. But I think what people forget is that we all have a lot of heart, and like there's a lot of passion behind it. And it's not just heart and passion for wrestling, but like you said, we're very giving people. We're obviously not in it for selfish reasons. Otherwise, everybody would have quit a long time ago. It's not like unless you're really, really up there, it's not like you're making a crap ton of money off of the independent. So a lot of it is because of that heart and like what you put into it. And like, I think all the, I don't want to say the good people, but a lot of the people, because you have your few stray dogs who maybe are in it for the wrong reasons, but for the most part, we're all in it for the right reasons because we want to give back. We want to entertain. We want to support the local like bars and such. So we say hang out at the after bar, and some people will spend their whole payday so that they can support the after bar and buy food and all of that stuff. So I think not that people in the bigger companies don't have that heart, but I think they just forget where they came from maybe. Or they forget, how that felt to like for these young guys to really start like building themselves up and such. But it takes a lot of heart, and when you don't have that, obviously you're not putting as much into it. And then those are the people who tend to fade away and like fizzle out, and then you realize, wow, I haven't heard about this person in years. And it's not saying that they're bad people. It's just you got to really love this to do this because you don't get a lot out of it financially, or you put a crap ton of miles on your car and maybe you go through numerous cars because you're driving all the time, or you're missing maybe birthdays or family events or something. And so the normies don't get it, but it's because we have that heart. Our heart is into it. And when I feel like your heart's into it, it's like fully into it in every aspect.
Right. I always say too, I'm like, listen, a lot of people collect stamps as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Right.
this is what I do for,
Exactly.
takes
Exactly.
away a lot of steam.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is now you've been the Wisconsin women's like manager, the female manager. So your name has been out there, and like I said, you're able to now take a guy like Cody Jacobs, and you're at that position, Val. And I hope I'm saying this correctly, where it's not just okay, Val Malone manager. It's like you're elevating that. Okay, now he's coming out with Val Malone because the Wisconsin fans have gotten a chance to love you, hate you, get to know you, and you're at that nice position where it elevates. That's got to feel nice, whether you realize it or not. Like, I'm not calling you old, I'm calling you seasoned in the business. Not older. You've been around. How do I get out of this? You've
No, yeah.
been in a number of high profile matches. You're known as a great manager, and you are at that position where you're elevating. I guess my question is, when you're early in your career and you're kind of coming out, and at first you probably came out almost as like, okay, I'm learning, but now you're elevating. You've got a story yourself. Boy, I could edit this all out because this all came out wrong, but hopefully you know where I'm going with this, is that you've established yourself in the business enough that now you're elevating people's statuses.
Yeah.
I'll edit that out. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But I totally know what you're saying. And, it took a while for me to actually feel that and like accept that that's what I was finally doing. Because obviously that was always my goal throughout this whole entire time since I started in 2006. And a big thing for me was I didn't want to just be associated with like my brother. I didn't want to just be, oh, okay, well, that's just Dysfunction's little sister. I wanted to actually have my own identity in itself, where people are like, oh wow, she's actually good at what she does, and she's not just doing this because her brother's in it or because of any other weird random reason. And I think it was one of the GLCW shows. I started managing Adam Grace, and he had obviously been around for a bit. It wasn't like he wasn't around, because he definitely was. But Dave had put me and him together as like a little heel like team together. And I think a few months after working with Adam Grace, he like told me like, hey, I really like working with you because you make me feel more confident as a heel. You make me like be more expressive as a heel, and like it brings it out of me a little bit more, knowing that like I was there like with him, because he had said, when I'm doing this by myself and don't have you as my manager, it's different, compared to when you have somebody with you that's like on that same page and like, let's get heat and let's be weirdos and all that stuff. So I think that was when I realized like, wow, I really do like working with like Not that he's not seasoned, not that he's not good, none of that. But I kind of like working with the guys who are a little bit younger and like still trying to figure stuff out, you know, like I kind of wish I could work with a lot of the younger guys that maybe aren't feeling as confident, because it seems from what I'm hearing, I do help build that confidence as being a heel a little bit. You know, it's maybe less nerve wracking to have somebody by your side that's willing to sit there and start spouting, you know, out at the mouth and talking crap to people or whatever, instead of doing it by yourself. So when I was told that, I was like, you know what? I really do kind of like working with like the younger, greener-ish guys a little bit more than, you know, the people who have been around forever and are already in their own, you know, mind and their own groove in a way. So I think that's one of the things I've been actually wanting to really do, is kind of try to branch out with like the younger-ish people and the people I haven't worked with, just to I feel like it's weird cocky for me to say I'm elevating people for some reason, because I just want everyone to do really good so we all put on a good show and like we're all being entertained. But I can just tell watching it that some of the younger guys maybe are more comfortable being a baby face than a heel, or, you know, vice versa. So where I can help with that, I would like love to continue helping with that, considering a lot of people aren't super confident. And I think when you start being not successful like financially in wrestling, but comfortable when you're going out there, is when you're actually super confident in what you're doing and like embracing that. Like I feel like if you're not confident, that kind of shows. So I feel like confidence is a huge thing. So if I can help somebody be more confident when they're out there just by me acting dumb, like fabulous. So as much as I can help out with like the younger people, like I would love to continue to keep doing that.
And I can say it because I'm way older than you and watched it when I was little, but you do elevate, because it used to be if somebody came out and you'd never seen them before, and then all of a sudden they're being managed by Jimmy Hart or Bobby Heenan, as a fan, you're like, all right, well, what's going on here? This must be somebody. So it is, and I'll say it for you because I know it's hard to say, but it is, and that was the point of my question. It was a compliment in form of a question that when you now Coda Jacobs, I've seen Coda wrestle a lot, you know, but you know, okay, now Coda's coming out with you and JP. It does make you take it a little bit more seriously. All right, cool, because then I don't, you know, anything could happen in wrestling at any time, but he's wrestling TW3 for the title that night. He comes out with Val Malone, and I'm like, all right, what's going to happen now? You know, we got the interference factor and stuff, so it's great. I got to get a travel question in, because we are Wrestling Travel, as you know, or don't know. I'll explain it to you. We are in Manchester of the United Kingdom, and what we do is we bring wrestling fans to great events all over the world. Wrestle Kingdom, Tokyo, WrestleMania. We would have been in Tampa Bay, but we get the fans, we get their flights, we get their hotels, we get their tickets to the events, and we also have them surprise appearances with a lot of special guests. So my travel question is, since you began in the business, where are some of the cool places that city-wise, state-wise, where has the business taken you that you probably wouldn't have gone?
Oh, sure. So obviously it took me a lot of the random towns around the Midwest that you definitely would never go to. But I think one of my top places, like I've been to like New Orleans and such, like for the WrestleMania weekends and all of that. But the one place that really always stands out to me and will always forever probably stand out to me until I'm a little old lady, is being able to do the shows WrestleMania weekend for Dragon Gate USA, and being able to manage Jon Moxley like before he hit Dean Ambrose status and such. Because that weekend was just ridiculously fun, you know, just even after the match and like partying with everybody and hanging out and like that whole camaraderie thing. And that was Atlanta that year. I would have never I'd driven through Atlanta, but I would never actually go there, have a hotel room, hang out, go to a club. Like I'm not a club person, you know. So I look back on that weekend and we drove down there. I mean, it's not like we flew. We definitely made that drive. I was still somewhat not newer, but I was starting to get credibility behind my name for doing AEW shows. And like Jimmy Jacobs was there, and I had known him forever. So he was always pushing for me to like get a spot and such. So once I proved it to Gabe that I actually, you know, knew what I was doing and such, you know, he threw me with Jon Moxley actually a number of times. I managed him for Dragon Gate USA, but that weekend particularly, because it was a WrestleMania weekend, it was an iPay-per-view, you know, there was another, Trina Michaels was involved, porn star, but they knew it was Jon Moxley against Eric Cannon, and they knew Trina's, her forte in that wrestling is something else. So when me and her were both out there with Jon Moxley, I got all the spots, and I was involved with the finish and everything. And they said, just so you know, we're giving you all the spots because we know it's not going to get messed up at WrestleMania weekend. It's an pay-per-view. This is a big deal. It was like kind of right before he like went away to get the Dean Ambrose status. So I'm super grateful, and like those are the moments that I'm really, really appreciative for. But I was also on the Dragon Gate USA side, one of Daniel Bryan's last matches. Brian Daniels said after he got fired for the whole type thing, he came back to Dragon Gate USA, and him and Jon Moxley had a match right in my own backyard in Milwaukee, and that was like one of his last ones before he like returned there. So even though that wasn't a traveling thing, that still is one of those like super proud moments that I had because I got to be a part of like one of his last independent matches. Technically independent because it wasn't TV. I mean, it wasn't like it was an pay-per-view. It was just a Milwaukee show when Dragon Gate USA came to town. So I got to have like a lot of really cool moments like that I'll remember like literally my entire life.
Now, is there any? So you've been in the ring with a lot of and managed, obviously with Moxley and with Danielson, been with a lot of stars. Is there anybody? I usually ask people that are wrestling if there's a bucket list of people they want to step in the ring with. Is it as a manager? Is something like that feasible? Do you have like hey, I'd like to work with this person?
You know, I actually have, if hit the lottery, and if I had all the money in the world, I do have a dream match that I would pay somebody to book. I'd pay for it, but I have a dream match that I want to be a part of. And it would be Shane Douglas against my brother, who my brother's already worked Shane Douglas. But it would be Shane Douglas against Dysfunction, but with Francine in Shane Douglas's corner and me in my brother's corner. So that would be my dream match, or on my bucket list would be, I would love to work opposing Francine. Because she's another manager, like obviously there's a lot of guys I would love to work with, but just like looking at the people like in my forte that I grew up really like idolizing and wanting to be like, and still to this day model a lot of my stuff after, like I would love to like be in a match with Francine or really anybody else. I mean, I got to work with a lot of ECW people, like I got to work with, you know, like Sabu and Raven and like a bunch of those guys, but of course the list is endless for people there that you can work with that I would love to work with.
A lot of times I like to ask and this is such a cliche question, but I've not had a chance to ask it to somebody who's a manager. Your Mount Rushmore, your top 5 managers of all time. Can you?
Oh, top 5 managers of all time. Well, it'll definitely be, you gotta throw Sherry in there for sure, because Sherry is just, everything she did was always so good. She wasn't afraid to get involved and take like the random bumps, even before like the ECW chicks were doing it. Sherry was like the one like that was getting like brought in the hard way in the ring and stuff. So Sherry's definitely on there. Obviously Bobby Heenan is definitely on there. He's gotta be on there. A lot of people get annoyed with Jimmy Hart, but I don't mind Jimmy Hart, so I'd maybe throw him in there. I also really like Jim Cornette. Like like watching Jim Cornette as a manager. I'm a big fan of Jim Cornette. Also, obviously, we throw Francine in there. She's probably one of the main girls, I think, from ECW that I throw in, even though there's like Beulah and everybody else. I feel like Francine definitely like redefined a lot of stuff by what she was doing. And then probably like Sunny. Like, how do you not throw Sunny in there? Like, she was a great talker. Like, reading her book, she was definitely a little into herself, but that's fine. But when she first started out being able to cut promos and talk like that, like a lot of the guys have problems or struggles cutting promos. And if you watch like her earlier stuff, like when she was like with like Smoky Mountain and stuff, she was very good on the mic. And like a lot of the stuff she said was just really, you know, good and like, wow, that was very clever of her to say. So I would definitely still throw her in there, even though she's been a slight train wreck as of late. I mean, that's 5. Is that my 5? I think that was 5.
We have certain eras where people were a little bit more popular than others, but yes. And Jimmy Hart, I know people can get annoyed, but the nicest guy in the world if you get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, I definitely met him at BCW, brought him in for one of the state fair shows, and my brother was like, hey, Jimmy Hart, let's go get a picture with him. So me and him were able to like take a picture with him, and I talked with him a little bit. Yeah, super nice. Nicest guy ever. But I think some people just kind of got like annoyed with him, but which could be a good thing. Oh, and you know who else? I'd also throw Vicky Guerrero on that Mount Rushmore, probably ahead of Jimmy Hart. So can't forget about her. But I would definitely throw her in there as well.
One of my big disappointments with Mania getting canceled is I had Vicky coming in to meet everybody traveling over. She was going to be at our hotel and she going to do our podcast well, all the fans from the UK were there to meet her, and
Yeah.
she gave us a great. She really wanted to work with us, and hopefully
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
make that happen for WrestleMania 37 and get her back out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I
Yeah,
thought
no,
I
it's like
interrupted you.
cross for you, because that would be great to have Vicky Guerrero part of that.
One of the final questions here. Managing there's not many. Now we have in AEW, let's say, it looks like they got Arn and Tully. I don't know if they're managers or more advisors, but I would love to see managing come back the way it was. What do you think it would take for like the big guns to have managers? I'm not sure why we got away from it.
I think, and I could totally be wrong, but I think what got away from it was like the WWF and like WCW in like that late 90s of, oh, you just wanted a bikini contest, let's get you in there. But there was no knowledge behind it. There was no passion behind it. Or even if they tried giving them spots, like they're not trained, like even though you're not like physically training, going to camp like wrestlers, there's still training that goes behind being a manager. So you know the spots during the match that you should be a little bit louder, or you should be banging on the mat a little bit more during a double down or something like that. There's a little bit of knowledge that goes into it, and I feel like that got away from being managers around that time, because they were just throwing anybody in that spot, or you're dating this guy, throw you in, and it worked out for like some people, but I think for the most part it doesn't really work because they don't have that same passion and that same heart. I think what it'll take to bring it back for like the companies like AEW or like WWF sorry, old school. I think what's gonna bring that back is them taking chances on getting people actually that are managers that have been doing it for a long time and are actually doing the right things, and getting them more exposure and showing that, yeah, this person may be attractive or maybe wears tight clothes or has her butt cheeks hanging out, but she brings a lot more to the table than just what you physically see, So I think it'll take just somebody giving us a chance. And I've noticed, WWE is definitely using Zelina Vega more in that capacity too, where she can definitely wrestle, and she did all that stuff for TNA and everything, but they're using her more in like a manager capacity. The only thing I wish they wouldn't do with her is like having her do she can do those cool moves and stuff, but I kind of wish they wouldn't have her do it, so that it would keep her strictly as being a manager. And maybe getting us a platform in that sense where you don't have to do wrestling moves to get heat and be a manager and such, So I think it'll just, like if it just take giving somebody a chance and actually showing like this is possible. Like you can have somebody that's a decent manager that gets heat and serves their purpose to the fullest without it being a eye candy type of a situation.
Right, you can be eye candy, but as long as you understand the psychology and what's going on in the match, like we said earlier, for me that's the tough thing when you're outside of the ring of just, oh, okay, where am I? Like I said, I think it's almost more nerve-wracking. So my hat is off to you, where you've gotta follow. I mean, you go to a different town. I mean, 2 shows in a row where I couldn't imagine doing 2 shows in a row, being outside the ring and trying to remember where the heck I'm supposed to be. In fact, our good buddy Benjamin Boone did a road story for us about working with Scott Steiner and having a young, pretty girl who was strictly more than probably somebody said, oh, she's cute, come on and be on our show. And she had no clue, and how pissed off Scotty Steiner was. It's a pretty funny story. Check it out.
And
So
that could ruin the entire match. That's why I never understood why people did that, because it's like, ooh, that could ruin this entire thing just by one person not knowing what the hell is going on or what to do. Like that always baffled me, how a random-ish could just be thrown into, like, especially if it's a match like with Scott Steiner and like Benjamin Boone, like you don't want anything to happen that could possibly like mess that up. Even like a referee, would you really want a brand new referee that maybe isn't more seasoned and experienced? Probably not. So I kind of wish people would look at managers in that regard of, well, how much experience do they actually have, and how much have they been doing this, and are they actually good at it, instead of it just, you're good to look at, let's throw you in there. But maybe someday.
there we go. Get Val Malone if you are. Have you ever got a chance to go over to the UK and perform?
Never.
UK promoters.
Yes.
Val Malone. Have a passport. If they don't, I was reading something earlier that even when the borders open, the European Union was going to say no to Americans. So hopefully that's all. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't trust the news right now. Only because everything's crazy.
Yeah.
I could turn it on 7 different channels and get 8 different stories. So, but
Exactly.
I'll believe it when I see it. But hopefully that doesn't happen because we work extensively with this company called For the Love of Wrestling, who runs a huge wrestling convention, the biggest one in Europe, in Liverpool. And I know they were supposed to do it in April, and now they pushed it off to the Halloween time. And
Okay.
I would like to go to there. They can go to that one of these days. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
sound like it's going to happen for us traveling this year, but
Yeah.
UK promoters, keep Val in mind for the following year.
Absolutely.
All right, Val. I always say it goes 15 minutes, and then I get to the end where I look. Have somebody like you on for an hour, and I feel like we haven't really even touched the surface with some good questions. But respectful of your time, we will thank you for joining us. We are looking forward to seeing much more now from the state of Wisconsin that's able to wrestle, and as some of the other states open up. Pay attention to Val Malone. A lot of the Wisconsin organizations, because if you want to get your wrestling fix, I know I took some video clips. I know everybody else is for everybody else in the wrestling world to watch. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time. I always love talking wrestling. I could talk wrestling for hours. So
I could too, and I'm like, maybe you know what? We'll do a part 2 one day where I'll actually ask much better questions and not
let's do it.
not fumble over what I was trying to say. You were elevating. I'd realize that was a half-hour question in its own as I was. Rumbling. It kind of reminds me of going. I'm always the guy that goes to a girl. Hey, I love your hair. What did you do to it?
Yeah.
Nothing. I didn't wash it today. And I'm going. Okay. So normally it's washed, and I hadn't noticed. So foot in mouth, but hey, it's what I do. So Val Malone, thank you very much. We wish you the best of luck. And thanks for joining us on Lockdown Sessions.
Thanks for having me.